Welcome to the Navigating My Crazy podcast. I'm Shayla. Navigating My Crazy is a weekly podcast created for moms trying to balance life, family, purpose, and wanting to improve their mental wellness. Our goal is to inspire conversations necessary to end the stigma associated with mental health and the unrealistic societal expectations related to being a mom. But most importantly, to create a community so that no mom ever feels alone as we all navigate this crazy thing called life together. This episode is brought to you by Shayla Shaw Empowerment. In addition to hosting and producing this podcast, I am a certified empowerment coach for moms. Are you in need of support and accountability as you work to achieve personal and professional goals? Are you looking to enhance skills, resources, and the creativity needed to overcome depressive behaviors, preventing you from being present, thriving, and enjoying your family? Then you need an empowerment coach. If you have any questions or want to set up a consultation, email me via shayla@shaylashaw.com, or if you want to know more about me or my services, visit shaylashaw.com. Let's start this show. All right, so on this episode of the Navigating My Crazy podcast, we are talking about marrying a person that has a child or children and then becoming a step parent. So I'll be speaking with Jessica Lacey. Jessica is a newlywed and she's getting ready to celebrate 2 years of marriage in July. She's also a stepmom to teens. She hosts the Love Your Whole Body podcast. She's also a certified life coach, and she's passionate about people living productive, restful lives. And she really believes this is possible. So welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you, Shayla. I have been looking forward to this since we first connected, and I can't wait to roll with you on all this.
Yes, so we're going to jump right in with 2 feet. So prior to meeting your husband, did you ever consider or did you date any other guys that had children?
You know, I had dated one guy who had been divorced, but never anyone who had had children. And I think it wasn't something that I thought about either way. I hadn't thought, no, I would never do that, or yes, I would. I just hadn't had that experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have any reservations once you actually found out he was a father?
You know, I think probably a lot of your listeners can identify with this. Like, we have an ideal. I had an ideal in my head of the kind of man that I thought I would end up with. And I'll tell you, in many ways, it was so different than my husband. Like, my husband was older, he was divorced, he had kids, and that was never what I envisioned for myself. But he had this character that I had been looking for in all the men I had been dating for a long time that I had not seen. And I was like, oh, that's it. I think I was pretty naive about the whole thing. Like and optimistic, you know, I'm pretty resourceful. And I was like, oh, you know, if this goes further, I can make this work. But I had no idea what I was stepping into.
Right. And it's funny that you pointed that out, because some friends and I were talking about, you know, like you were saying, you have this ideal about your mate and then you end up finding someone and, you know, it's really the focus on the character of the man and not, you know, some of the other things that we think are important. So what was the thing that made you say, yes, this is the one about your husband?
It was a process. We did a lot of work, to get really honest, through like premarital counseling and some other trainings and personal development that I'm a part of. And he just kept showing up. Like, I just meet a lot of men when you start getting really serious, when I would start getting really serious, they couldn't really hang, you know, and they would peace out. And he just kept manning up to the things that needed to happen. And he did that enough, and he manned up to the altar, I guess is what I could say.
That's awesome. So as far as finding your premarital counseling, how did you guys go through that process?
I had a therapist that I had worked with years prior, and he offered there's a test on compatibility. I wish I knew the name off the top of my head, but we knew that he was trained in that test. So we took that. And then also there was a local church out here that had like a seriously dating or engaged course. And so we attended part of that as well. And then like I tried to, a lot of people are like, try to not rock the boat, right? Like, cause they don't want to mess it up. I was like purposely pushing us into situations that would show us what we were made of,
Right.
like meeting each other's families and having certain honest conversations. Cause I was like, I want to see if we can stick, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So how was the test? How was the compatibility test? Like if you take it and you're totally not compatible, do you just kind of like bow out?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the couple. There are different, I think there's like 4 quadrants or something. And the therapist was like, yeah, if you get in these like bottom one or the second to bottom, you should probably walk away. Like, fortunately, we didn't end up in that quadrant.
But do you feel like taking that helps you better understand, how to communicate and just like the love language thing, how to understand when he's upset and how to kind of work through those things? Do you recommend that to other people that are getting married?
I think it all depends on what your background is with growth, but everyone's got to start where they're at. And so, yeah, I think it's a great resource, a great starting point, and then you can build on that, or you can take what you want out of it and let go of the rest. But really, there are some seminars that we attended together through this ministry that I'm connected to that I feel like those were really some of the things that gave us the language that have shaped the way we communicate, really strengthened our relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how far into the relationship were you before you actually met your stepkids for the first time?
I think we were boyfriend and girlfriend in December, and I think I met them for the first time in February, and then we ended up eloping in July.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all like pretty quick.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that first meeting? Did you meet any resistance during the first meeting? Was it awkward?
Yes, it was a little awkward. Yeah, when I met them, I think they were 14 and 16 or had just turned 15 and 17. Mm-hmm. They were lovely. They've always been lovely. And we went to the aquarium together, and his daughter chatted with me the whole time. It's really sweet. When we dropped them off, I freaked out. I was like, because I had only been with him, and we had such a dynamic, like energizing, friendly, honest way of relating. And it just was a new dynamic. And I think it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, like, holy crap, like this is something I would be signing up for.
Right.
And it definitely stirred up a lot in me. And I was like, I'm kind of freaking out. And I was like, I'm going to make my way through it, but right. I'm just kind of freaking. I think I started crying, like he dropped off the kids and I just broke down crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know.
Right. Just nerves, the nervousness and the anxiety of it all.
Yeah. And like, in a selfish way, like wanting that connection with just my husband or something. And this has been what's so beautiful. Like, I'm kind of tearing up about stepmomming is like how much space it's creating in me to love other people and like learning how to sacrifice some of those things that I really want to look a certain way and they don't, but I get to learn how to like make space for other people and let my own desires, like not run the show all the time.
Right. Right. That's good. So what were some steps that you took to try to initiate a relationship with them?
Yeah. Well, my youngest, Ian, my stepson, he's so sweet. Like within the first couple weeks of us being married, he's like, I love you. And he puts his arm around me. And so he was always really open-hearted to me. He loves old movies and old shows. And so one of the things we do is we'll watch old shows together. It's not totally my genre. So I tell him, I'm like, I got a limit. Like right. We'll do like one a week or whatever. And then with my oldest, she's a little more reserved. And like one of the little things that I've practiced with her is just making sure to say goodnight every night. And I think like just something I want to offer to the listeners who are in this situation is like sometimes it's just being faithful in the little acts of love over and over and over again. Even when, like I'm knocking on her door and I'm like, I don't even know if she really wants me there. You know what I mean? Like she's a teen, she's got her earbuds in, like she's on her phone, whatever. So just saying goodnight to her every night. And then we like thrifting, like our family loves going to thrift stores. So, that's something we try to do as a family is like go thrifting or find things that we can all enjoy and do them together, or things that she and I both enjoy, like shopping or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So did you receive any disapproval or some unwarranted advice from friends and family when you kind of told them about the situation?
Everyone was open to the kid piece. I think one of my friends had felt concerned, but I think honestly he was older than me, and that was where I got the most disapproval, honestly, is some people were, concerned or thought like, oh, I was getting the better deal or he was getting the better deal. And I was like, no, he's an amazing man, you guys, like I'm making out too. So the most disapproval was around the age. I didn't receive anything around him having kids. I think people were like probably a little less naive than me. They're like, hey, this is maybe a bigger deal than you realize, which is fair, right?
And so did you receive any resistance from them, maybe like you were saying, coming into a space that they weren't used to someone being there?
We tried to be really intentional about that. Like we were even looking at housing, and we purposely stayed in the place that they were in. I think we probably all felt uncomfortable. It wasn't, I wish we would have been able to have a little more dialogue about that. But at one point, I think one of the kids shared, yeah, it's just really different. And, for me too, it was like, okay, how do I be myself, but not encroach on who they are or take up too much space, right? And I have these dreams of being married, and then there's kids, and I get to take them into account. So I think we probably all felt a little uncomfortable for, I'd say, at least 6 months. They're with us part-time, like 40% of the time. But I'm really proud of us. I think we did a really beautiful job, like staying connected to each other, not closing off, like, being willing to kind of find a new normal.
So what is some advice that you would share with another mom as they enter into the realm of being a stepmom?
Yeah, a couple things. I think if it hasn't happened yet, just coming into the reality that it will look different than probably what you imagined. And in my case, it was my first marriage. I had been wanting to be married for like 8 years and had dated a lot. And I think it was not the ideal I had of just this dreamy, uninterrupted time with my husband. It's like, really, you will get to take into account other people. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Like that is a reality. I think for me, my family upbringing is pretty rough, and it was really beautiful to have a family unit that like really enjoys each other. And sometimes we'll even be sitting at dinner and we're all getting along and we're all talking. And that wasn't something that happened a lot in my family of origin. So there's been a lot of really restorative things. So I guess to say to the person who would step into it, there's going to be sacrifices. There's also going to be beautiful things that you didn't expect. And then if you're already entering in, one of the most helpful things for me, because in the beginning I was really insecure and I was like, oh my gosh, is she going to like me? And I was like in my head about that a lot, and I didn't know how to be myself. And I was actually working with a coach, and the coach was like, what does she need? And it was a really powerful question. And I identified like 3 things that I thought she really needed. And it got me to flip from trying to get my needs met from her. And now like, I feel like she needs to be seen, celebrated, and consistency. And that is my stand for her. And getting off her meeting my needs and turning over to what does she need, and then standing for that no matter how uncomfortable it is, like clarifying who you want to be for your stepkids and how you want to love them, and then just fiercely doing that, and then processing when it fails, because it will. There's lots of disappointments too, or there have been for me, but that's been a huge turning point. And then even when I feel upset, usually it's because I want some type of validation that I'm not getting. And if I can get honest about that instead of trying to, be mad at them for not giving it to me the way I want, it keeps me connected. It keeps my heart soft and open. And it keeps me like going again to build the kind of family that I have a vision to create with them and my husband.
That's beautiful when you realize that you were looking for something from her, and then you being able to identify that and adjust. Because I feel like I was the same way. My stepson was really quiet and reserved, and I took it like he didn't like me. Like, why doesn't he like me? So it's like I was doing all of these things to try to make him like me, and it wasn't that. He was just quiet and reserved. And like you said, really taking the time and talk to them instead of just constantly trying to do things that's not working. Just ask. And so, yeah, that was powerful.
That's awesome that you shared that. I don't know, like sometimes when I have asked my stepkids specific questions, they're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And that hasn't given me a lot of information, but that's awesome. It's worked for you. And I think that might be a great tool for listeners too, is, just ask, and hopefully the kids will just say straight up what's going on for them.
Right. Right. And I think it was more me trying to buy things. And it's like,
absolutely,
you don't have to buy me anything. I don't think that. And it was just, like you were saying, it's awkward. And especially, I think he was 8. He was 8
okay.
when I first met my husband. So it's like that awkwardness of trying to, at that age, of course, not encroach on mom, but then trying to find out who I'm going to be in this relationship, because I had kids at that time. So it was easier for me to try to be his mom because that's what I was used to, instead of understanding that being a stepmom is something different. Yeah. And it can be something beautiful also, but it's different. Just understanding that role, and then also understanding that it changes, especially as they get older and events start to happen in their lives. So let's shift gears and let's just talk about the Love Your Whole Body podcast. So what's that podcast about? And then what made you decide to start it?
Yeah, it's a huge passion of mine. My podcast is called Love Your Whole Body. And essentially the premise is, in order to love your life, you have to love yourself, including your body. Mm-hmm. And that when we love our bodies, it increases our capacity to love others. And I just feel like there's such a big hole in this area. There's a lot of rhetoric like work harder, be thinner, be fit. And then there's this other extreme like total body acceptance, everything is okay. And I'm like, yes and no, to both of those. And so it really begins with a place of kindness and self-acceptance, but it holds the tension of, and we're always improving. What does it mean to come into authenticity of yourself, including your body, which is often overlooked societally, and yet it's a part of everything we do. Everywhere we go, it's with us. And if we can start renewing our relationship with it, it can create a lot of openings, professionally, relationally, psychologically. Just, I could go on and on about it, Shayla, because I'm passionate about it.
Yes. So tell everyone, what you do, how to get in contact with you, what's your specialty, and what you put out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys, I am passionate about people being their truest selves with grace and power in the world. And my story is one, I won't go into it in detail, but I went through a lot of burnout, and I've really had to learn how to be the person I want within the limits and boundaries of a life that's restful, that honors my own values. And that's what I support my clients in doing. And I do that through one-on-one coaching. I have a mastermind that I'm going to be launching in September. I have a digital product that I'm going to be finishing up creating, and really helping people clarify what their top values are. And when we know what's most valuable to us, we can begin to prioritize our lives around those values. And there will be losses because we cannot do everything at the same time. But when we're so clear that the thing that's most important to us is happening, it makes those losses sting less. And so that's a part of what I do. And I work with people in career changes, improving relationships. I mean, really any area where someone is wanting to grow, I can usually support them in.
So if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, people can reach me at www.jessicalaceycoaching.com. And there's no E in my last name. It's just LACY. And then I'm also on Instagram at Jessica Lacey Coaching as well.
All right. And I'll make sure to put all of your information up in the show notes. So thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us.
Yeah, Shayla, it's great to be with you. It's fun to see your face. I know listeners can't see our faces, but it's good to see yours.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Navigating My Crazy podcast. Don't forget to send all of your questions to questionswithans@navigatingmycrazy.com, or you can complete the form on our website at navigatingmycrazy.com/contact. Also, join the community and chime in on the conversations by liking and following Navigating My Crazy on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Subscribe and rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite podcasting platform. Moms, have a great week and get ready for our next Talk It Out Tuesday.